Great, welcome everyone. I'm so glad you all showed up. I was just sharing this is my first in-person workshop for more than half a year now, and so I'm really excited to actually be working with people in the physical space and not just virtually online. So thank you so much for showing up, and really grateful to see all of you here. My name is Jonathan, and I'm so thrilled to be invited to share my passion on collective leadership and all the things that inspire me around working with organizations, with teams, with people. And so before we do a little circle to hear everyone's name and to bring everyone present in this space, I will share a few words about myself and my background and just a very broad definition of what this is about when I speak about collective leadership. And we'll be filming a few pieces of this since a few people couldn't show up and asked if it could be recorded so that they can also partake in this workshop afterwards. And so, looking at my journey, I was quite clear at an early age already that I wanted to go into the business world, because I felt if there's the possibility to change something in the business world, it will affect a lot of people. It will have a huge influence on the world, and it would be a feasible way to change the world and to bring in some of the aspects that I felt in my heart as a possibility but didn't see manifest in the world already. And so I started to study business, and I was very disappointed with the things that I taught us at business school. Especially the values didn't resonate with me, and so I was looking for other ways, and on that path discovered that what is really key to running a business and to leadership is to turn the camera from the perspective of looking at the outside world towards more the inside world and the inner place that the leader is coming from. And so I've been starting my own company after graduating from university, working with the psychology department of the university, developing an assessment and a software that can test groups of people to look how are we not only complementing each other in terms of our skills, but also in terms of our personality, and bringing that more into the focus and working with people to coach them to work better together. But somehow we haven't been really reflecting the model, we haven't been reflecting the working hypothesis that we had as a company within us as a team. We were still very hierarchical in many ways, even just subtly and not explicitly. And so I've been continuing my research. I actually lived in an Ecovillage for a year because I was inspired by their holistic approach to leadership and to sustainability. And I've been working for the International Global Ecovillage Network for 3 years in total, and explored a lot of different eco-villages, and I was very inspired by life in communities and how people work on a consensus basis. But also that somehow felt limited to me in some ways, because I realized these consensus processes take a long time. It takes a lot of conversations, and sometimes those people who have the most stamina, who last longest, will eventually make the decision because others go to bed at some point. And that didn't feel ideal to me either. But there was something about the inclusivity of really involving everyone in the decision-making process in a participatory way that was really inspiring, and I so kept inquiring deeper, and about 12 years ago started with a group of friends an organization called Leadership Cubed, where we inquire into new ways of leadership and specifically into collective leadership. And how we did that is by starting with a festival that we organized, and in the way that we organized the festival, we wanted to explore how can we actually embody new principles of leadership and make this festival about a new way of leadership, but also practice and experiment with new styles of leadership. And so during that time, we discovered a lot of things, a lot of practices, processes, and tools, but beyond that, even more a mindset that was really necessary to embody this way of collective leadership. And I'll share more what I really mean by collective leadership in a way, and we'll experience here in the workshop, also in a very practical way. But before we go into this, I'm really curious to hear who's sitting here with us. And since we're a large group, we'll have more time in smaller groups, or breakout rooms as you call them in Zoom. So we'll be going into physical breakout rooms and having more in-depth opportunities to get to know each other. So for now, I'd just be curious to hear your name, and one word that reflects for you how you are sitting in this circle right now. So any word that comes to your mind that somehow symbolizes how you're present with us right now, also to presence yourself here in this group so that we can also get a bit of a feel for who is here and how are we present as a group. So looking at the situation in this world today, I think for all of us here, it's so obvious that we are really called to step into something new, to embody something that is in the air but not quite present yet. And a big part of that for me is leadership. So when I speak about leadership, I'm not speaking about people who are on the top of the hierarchy of big corporations, but I speak about all of us and a certain quality and a way of living where we care about the world around us, where we care about ourselves and the people around us, and we step up to take responsibility. So a mom taking care of her child in a loving and responsible way and making sure that this child has the best conditions to grow up in and healing her own trauma so she doesn't pass it on to the children, to me that is leadership. Someone putting a lot of love and effort into a garden and making it a beautiful space so others can enjoy it. That to me is leadership. A doctor really diving deep into ancient wisdom to bring up real healing to the people and leaving the traditional paths of allopathic medicine, expanding the possibilities. That to me also is leadership. So there are many ways that we can embody leadership, and it's more about an inner mindset rather than about our actions that we have in the outside world. And so when we speak about collective leadership, it can be easily misunderstood that everyone needs to decide everything when we are a group of people. And when I speak of group of peoples, this approach is really applicable to both companies, NGOs, non-profits, governmental organizations. It can also be used for smaller teams. It's really very much about expanding our possibilities in working together. And we call our company Leadership 3, Leadership Cubed, because for us leadership has these three dimensions. It's the I, the you, and the we. It starts with I, the self-leadership. How am I leading myself? How am I taking responsibility for myself? How am I reflecting my impact in the world? How am I taking steps in order to build my capacity to hold space for myself and for others? The you dimension is for me about everything that is related to a group of people, to our teams. So starting from this one-on-one personal interaction to larger groups of communication, structures, processes, even up to large organizations of how do we structure an organization. It's all part of the you aspect of leadership. And then the third, the we dimension, is to me about how are we taking responsibility for our shared humanity and for this planet. It's the larger responsibility that we're working towards and that is infusing our inspiration to work on ourselves and to work in teams together. So in a way, the we dimension is the most important of all, but also the I and the you are prerequisites for us in order to show up fully in the world. And so these are the three dimensions that we're working on. And a big part of what we're doing is actually to bring consciousness development into organizations in all forms and in all ways, including shadow work and trauma work, to make people become more aware of what is really driving them and the survival mechanisms that oftentimes still motivate us to do the things that we're doing. So the more we heal ourselves, the more we clear that channel, the more we can receive that inspiration, and we have a lot of models developed to, in a way, also communicate that in a way that is accessible for businesses, that they are also willing to go on that path and to see the benefits that come from that. So one misconception, and we'll explore that a little deeper in an exercise, is that everyone needs to decide everything together, and it'll take a lot of time to live collective leadership because it's confused with consensus decision making. This is not what collective leadership is about. Collective leadership is a very dynamic and competency-based leadership model. So instead of having a traditional hierarchy, we shift the leadership role very fluidly to the person in the group who has the highest competency in any given situation, and that can change from moment to moment. This is usually not possible in large organizations when you have a traditional hierarchy, because you have one boss who takes all the decisions and all decisions come to his or her table. And so if we switch to that new mode of leadership, It enables us to actually have the decisions made where there is the highest competency, and there's a beautiful, or actually many beautiful examples in nature. So for example, if you look at wild horses that have not been tamed and domesticated, they don't have an alpha animal, but they have a very accurate perception of which horse is most relaxed in any given moment. And they notice this by how deep a horse is breathing. So by observing which part of the group is breathing most deeply, they decide which horse is most relaxed and therefore most capable of making a decision. So for example, when they come to a crossing of a river, they look for which horse is most relaxed and let that horse lead over the crossing of the river. And so if we want to adapt that mode of leadership that these animals embody so beautifully, fish, for example, also do it when they swim as a swarm and they smell where the other fish are. Birds also do it. They fly in these flocks and they have a very intricate model of shifting which bird flies first. So if we want to learn or relearn these capacities as human beings, we in a way need to slow down in many ways to really perceive one another more and ourselves also. So it requires this introspection of, when do I have a leadership impulse? And do I have the courage to step up, even though that might be against my upbringing and against my conditioning? But then it also requires for us as a team to trust one another so deeply that I follow if you have that leadership impulse and step forward. And so it needs both the personal inner work as well as the team connection and trust building that is required for this model to work. And then what happens is that we can access more and more these group flow states. And you probably are all familiar with personal flow states, these times where you lose sense of time and space, where you lose your sense of self and you become super focused, super present, your creativity rises to the top, your inspiration soars, and you just become a lot more effective and work doesn't feel like work anymore. And we've had instances of that also as a group of people. So, for example, when we organized our festival, one of the things that we did was we put all the tasks that needed to be done in the center. We wrote them down on Post-its and we then stepped into the center and pulled the things that we were excited about, that we really wanted to do, that we really loved doing. And then we looked at the things that are still left in the center, and then we either decided that what is in the center and nobody took it, nobody was excited for, is just not important at this point. So for example, renewing our website, we realized maybe we don't need to do it if nobody's really excited about it. Or we looked at maybe the team that we're having is too small and we need to bring in people who are really excited about doing the things that are not distributed yet. And so having that excitement as the basis of our work and inspiring each other to really work in our zone of genius is also very supportive in creating that group flow. So this is the basic idea of collective leadership, and we'll go and explore how that really is embodied as a group. But before we dive into more theory and a few more models that I'd like to share that are helpful for the understanding of that, I would like to invite you to turn to a partner, the person next to you. And as I said, what is really important about this new way of leadership is the quality of listening. We'll be diving deeper into listening practices. But what we want to do first is to create some resonance here within the group and to learn more about who's actually present here. So to do that, we'll have a format where each person has 3 minutes undivided attention. And within these 3 minutes, you can answer a question and the other person will not interrupt. She or he will not ask questions or make comments on that, but just listen very attentively to what is being said and also what is not being said. And after these 3 minutes, you have the opportunity to give 1 minute of appreciative feedback. You can share your resonance of where did I feel you most? What was inspiring to me when I heard you talk? And what is a gift that I would like to give to you, sort of as a mirror, what I saw in you that you might not have seen when you were speaking. And then you turn to the other person also receives 3 minutes of undivided attention, speaking to the same question, and also receives 1 minute of appreciative feedback.